Hello, everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So, I'm back for another Have Your Say for Drag Race UK Season 6, Episode 8. And I thought I'd have to bring on a fellow titan of Drag Race YouTube. So, please join me in welcoming someone who always keeps us fed with his Drag Race videos. Please welcome JackFed.
Hello, that was a good one. I do keep people fed, I guess. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to actually finally collab. I think we've talked about doing something together a million times. It just never
Yeah.
happened.
I know. And we were even in the same room at one point at Drag Race, DragCon UK, but I don't think we ever crossed paths because I was
I
only
think
there the
you would.
second day.
Yeah, I went on the Friday and I think you went on the Saturday, right?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was there for like an hour on Friday, completely jet lagged, and then I just left because I was like, this is too much.
So we were almost in the vicinity, but not quite.
Yeah, super close.
Well, nice to actually get to speak to you finally. Obviously, we're doing it, virtually across thousands of miles away from each other, but still. This is a great episode. I'm so happy to have you on to talk about this. This is a great episode. So as I said in my introduction, we'll be talking about UK season 6 episode 8, which was the makeover challenge. So what we'll be doing is going through the episode, talking about our opinions. We'll go through like the runway looks and things like that. I'll then be doing the have your say and seeing whether Jack agrees with my audience and what they thought of the episode. And then I've also got some comments at the end that we'll talk about from the Have Your Say about the episode and whether we agree with those comments as well.
Sounds good.
Great. So I thought let's first just talk about what are your opinions on Drag Race UK in general, and then specifically this season. Have you been enjoying the season so far?
Yeah, I'm under like the opinion that Drag Race UK outside of like series 3 has never really been that bad, but I think what I don't know, 6 just has a different level of hype around it, which is really fun because the past couple seasons it felt like if you're watching them, you're having a good time, but outside of that, I feel like a lot of other people weren't really buzzing about it at all. So I'm happy there's a lot of hype around the season, and it's a good cast. I'm just overall excited to see where it's going. Yeah, it just feels like UK is back in terms of fandom and popularity, but the quality's always been there, I'd say.
Yes, I think I love that people always mention three. I feel so bad for three. I mean, yeah, it was maybe a little bit, but I agree. I do love Drag Race UK. Maybe I'm biased, obviously being from the UK myself, but I do think this season it has been amazing. It's such a strong cast, a lot stronger than some other seasons we've seen, and just so hard to call. And I think it's just been there's been enough drama to keep it going, but then enough talent to kind of not need drama all the time as well. So I've
Mhm.
really enjoyed 6 so far. And I thought this episode in particular was a really good episode. I'm usually not a massive fan of the makeover challenges, I'll be honest. I don't know
Mhm.
what are your opinions on the makeover challenges?
I mean, we saw. I don't think they did one on 5, but on 4, it was the first time Rue wasn't in the episode, and Dakota got sent home, and it was just like the judging seemed very off for it. But then again, I think people were also just big fans of Dakota. I don't know. You can kind of justify putting anyone in the top or the bottom because sometimes two people wearing the exact same outfit, that's family resemblance. But while other times it's lazy or people who have like more of a concept are put into the top, while other times it's like, oh, you have no family resemblance, so you're put into the bottom. Like it's just whatever they want to do. So I like them because I think there's a lot of cool runways, but as an actual challenge, I don't think it's that great.
Yeah, I think it's one of those challenges where it comes near the end of the season usually, and it's usually a little bit inconsistent, but also it's who they want to go home, and they'll kind of manufacture the judging critiques to suit who they want to kind of get rid of effectively. I
Mhm.
think that is often the a lot of the time what people don't like about it.
Right.
Okay, so diving into this week's episode, so obviously the Queens come back in, and it was Actavia got eliminated last week, which is obviously very sad. And obviously we're getting down to kind of the nitty gritty of the season now, with not many contestants left. So the makeover people come in, and it's mainly people's mothers, but then there's also a father and a sister as well.
Hmm.
So, what were your sort of thoughts when you saw it was a makeover and then you saw it was family members? Do you like it when it's family members, or do you prefer when it's like super fans or drag race staff or stuff like that?
To me, I really like anyone being a part of the makeover as long as they know what Drag Race is and enjoy it. We know like the early seasons, half the time they would get men who did not care for the show or like hated being there. I think families are easily like the best you can do because it's just like it's so easy to have like a heartfelt message in there. I wouldn't want it every season, but every time it does come up, I think it's a really big treat. So as long as they're a fan of Drag Race or at least like is enthusiastic to be there, I think there's you can do anything with any category.
So obviously different as I said, there's like mothers, father, sister. So we're just gonna kind of talk, we're gonna go straight into the runways because that is really the main part of the episode. And when we talk about each couple, we'll talk about obviously their relationship and stuff that we've learned about them. But other than that, not a huge amount happens other than them getting into drag and things like that. So let's
Right.
dive straight into that part of it. So Jack and I have reference images that we'll be looking at. Just because it's easier. So we'll go through them in order in which they came out on the runway.
Okay.
So first we had Lavoie and Voila, which is Lavoie's father. So what did you think of not only this but also the pairing in general?
I think this every single pair was great, but this pair definitely like stole the show in basically every way. Just seeing a man in his 80s being so supportive of his queer son and doing drag even is ridiculously cool. And I mean, I feel like they struck gold with having him on. Yeah, it's just it's just such a rare dynamic. I feel like as the generations go on, it may be more common, but like for I don't know, just pairing this I don't want to say old, but pairing with this much age on them, finding such a love and balance for each other, like a mutual respect, and especially the dad being able to support his son in this way, it's incredible. The runway itself, I think, is great, and I think I don't love the shoe that Voila has on, but that's about it. Everything else is great.
You're talking about the shoe not matching because it's sparkly, whereas the father has non-sparkly shoes.
I feel like that was the one thing that maybe they did not have like a
Okay.
matching set of, but everything else is like totally fine.
I hadn't actually noticed that until you mentioned that. But yeah, I thought, like I said, the father Richard, I believe was his name. He
Mhm.
was so sweet, and the fact that they don't really have dads on that often. Like they have had. I'm talking about an actual contestant's dad. I know they had in season
Mhm.
four, it was the dads, but I think there's only been a few times when someone's actual dad is usually the mum or a sister that comes. So, but the fact that
Yeah.
he was also almost 80 was incredible, and he was so cool, really was down for it. Like it was just such a lovely message. And oh, I did see someone on, I can't remember who it was on Twitter. Someone tweeted saying, "Oh, the reason RuPaul liked Richard so much is because there's finally someone who's RuPaul's age on the show."
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Which I thought, obviously, it's a joke because RuPaul is not quite that old, but I loved this. I thought he was so cool. The outfits I really loved. I thought that fabric always looks good. It looked really classy. I didn't notice the shoe, but now you've said it, I do notice it. For the runways, what we do is we do yay, nay, or just okay. So what would you give this one?
I definitely give it a yay. It presented super well. The shoe doesn't really matter in the grand scheme. And yeah, I think it's just overall really great.
I would give it a yay as well. I also loved the presentation of it, and they did that storyline of the dad like pushing Lavoie out of the way, and kind of
Mhm.
I thought that was so cool. And obviously, you could see the judges absolutely ate it up. So yeah, I loved this. Next one we have Marmalade and Just Jam, which is Marmalade's mother.
I I really, really love these outfits. I'm very happy with the result of the episode. They look so chic, and I definitely think it was Marmalade's week. Their dynamic is so cute too. Uh, it reminds me a lot of Gigi Good and her mom's dynamic. I just watched the little documentary that they put out about Gigi, but like when you have two very creative, artsy people come together and collaborate, the product's going to be great. And I think we saw that here. They just look incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marmalade. I we'll get onto this a bit later. I'm not sure. I think I can see why she won. I'm not sure. 100% I would have given her the win if it was my choice. We'll talk about that a bit later, but loved these outfits. I thought the mum was so funny. You can see where Marmalade gets that kind of quirky, almost a bit, we would call it like cheeky sense of humor. So I loved that. I definitely would give this a yay. Then we had Charity and Mummity, which was obviously Tara's mum. What did you think of this one?
I think they're good. I've definitely like compared to what other people brought. There was, you know, as soon as they turned the corner, I was like, they look good, but I feel like this is going to be a bottom if there is one. Only because they're more basic dresses. Like I think it's like influenced by the '60s mod type of dress. We've seen it a lot in these makeovers. Actually, I think Candy ended up winning on All Stars 8 with something similar, but. Um, they're safe dresses. I think they're smart to bring for the makeover, but sometimes when your competitors bring something a little more extravagant, these kind of fall into the background. But I love the color swappage that they did. I think her mom looks great. Just like a very cute, kind pair. I don't know. They just seem like I don't know. I would want to have lunch with them. I like to go over to their house, and I think they said that Charity's mom is a elementary school teacher, which makes so much sense, and I think it definitely rubbed off onto Charity.
Yeah, I thought this was like you said, the outfits as soon as they came out, I thought they were actually quite impeccably done in terms of they have the pink and the red inverted, and it's very clean in that sense. It doesn't look messy, but it's just very simple. But I think the makeover was effective. I loved their dynamic. The mum was super cute, and she you could tell she was living her best life, and I really loved that. With the outfits, I don't think they're bad enough for a nay, but I probably would give it a just okay.
I would say I'd give it like I think I'd give it a yay. Yeah, I just enjoy looking at them, but just side by side with others, not as strong.
Next one, we had Kyron Thrax and Rubella, which is Kyron's partner. What do you think of this? I think this is maybe the most out there, like different makeover this season.
I think if you know your brand is very out there, you can kind of get away with doing whatever on the makeover. I like them as a concept. I'm not like the biggest fan when it's compared to other people, I guess. Like I don't know. It doesn't. It fits into Kyron's style, but I feel like I expect something slightly different from a makeover. I don't know. It really has me confused because I like them. I think the presentation was really funny. This was her boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Their dynamic's great. They really put their uh, like chemistry together to make everything come together. But just looking at the outfits, I'm overall not the biggest fan. So maybe a just okay from me.
That's the thing. I really liked the style of it. And I think it very much fits into Kyron. I do agree though that it was very different to the others, and I maybe was expecting something a little bit different. I don't know if it maybe a lot. Some people will talk about this when we get to the have your say, but there were quite a few comments on this, and that maybe she should have been bottom three at least, like maybe not bottom two, but bottom three. So this, I thought, it looked really good, and I liked the concept of it. And I actually at the beginning didn't know which one was Kyron and which one was Rubella
Mhm.
because they both look really similar. The makeup and the actual family resemblance is definitely there, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'd say this is a just okay for me because I think it's so different from the others that you almost can't compare it. But there was something about it that maybe I think could have been slightly elevated a tiny bit. So then we've got Relisa Slaves and Jaleesa Lisa, which is her sister. What do you think of this?
I mean, for having to sew two dresses in like a 24-hour, 48-hour period, they look great. I don't know. The blue, is that from her Dragon Mom's coat that she had to rip up? I can't remember.
She
It
mentioned
might
it, so I
be.
think it must be. She didn't necessarily confirm, but I assume that probably is what it is.
Yeah, great touch. And I mean, the coat helped her a lot later in the lip sync, but the wigs are super cool. Yeah, I don't know. Again, compared to the other people, it just falls a little short, but with what she had to work with, I think presentation was incredible. And on any other season, this would have been at least safe.
So what would you give it? What yay, nay, or just okay?
I'd give it a yay for sure.
Oh, so Jack, you are being literally Miss Congeniality at the moment.
No, I really like that. I think the hair really brings it together. I like the can hair a lot. Um, so I'd give it a yay, honestly.
Jack, this is not the Miss America pageant. This is the RuPaul's Drag Race.
I'm just gonna go with Morgan because she has immunity.
Tatiana, that's an answer for the Miss America contest, not the RuPaul Drag Race contest.
No, I'm gonna stick by that.
No, I that's fair. I actually was really impressed because given that Release is not necessarily a sewer or a seamstress, and she still managed to come out with this, I was like, actually, both look really good. And I liked that there definitely was a family resemblance. They had like the hair was the same, and the actual outfits were really cute. Wasn't quite as elevated as the others, so I guess I'd have to give it a just okay. But I do think that on any other season, this would have been a safe look because they both looked good, and I liked their dynamic together. The sister seemed really fun. She's definitely the sort of person I would really like to hang out with because I'm sure she'd be a real fun time gal type thing.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And then finally, we had Lil and Lola Buzzcock, which is her mother. So, what do you think of Lil and partner?
I really liked it. I love the tattoos especially. This dynamic right here, I think, is a very telling sign of when makeovers are done right, I would say. Um, when it's focused more on the person coming in to experience drag, like they touched on how her mom didn't really feel the most confident, and then being able to experience drag and especially come out in an outfit that is way more revealing than she's probably used to, and really kill it. I think that brings I don't know, it just brings an extra layer to the whole concept of the makeover, and I think that's like my favorite part of the makeover is people experiencing the magic of drag. They look great. I think I remember not really liking the wigs that much. They were going for like the wet look or more of the messy look, which is fine. I just wasn't the biggest fan of it, but aside from that, I think they look incredible. So I'd say a yay.
Yeah, I loved this. We'll talk about this in a minute, but this was actually personally my favorite of all of them. I do agree that I think the wet look didn't quite work uh, as much, and there were some comments in the Have Your Say poll, like someone did describe it as fried, which I think is maybe a little bit harsh, but there were a few people that mentioned it. But the reason I liked this one so much is because they had a really cool dynamic. They really did feel like mum and daughter they weren't really even looking at the camera half the time. They were just talking to themselves. And I thought it was so
Yeah.
funny. And it's so much part of Lil's brand to just kind of not care about any, or like to not kind of not be too, I don't know, worried and kind of just going with the flow. And I really like Lil for that. But I also really liked the outfits. And I think they paired really well. I loved the tattoos. So yeah, this personally was my favorite. So I'd have to give it a yay. So, okay, so moving on. So obviously those were just the runways. So we find out that Marmalade is the winner of the week, and we'll discuss that in a minute. And then the bottom two, unfortunately, were Relisa and Chara, and they lip sync, and unfortunately, Chara T is eliminated. So we'll discuss that now and we move on to the Have Your Say poll and whether you agree with that. But that is just a
Mhm.
quick summary of the episode. So moving on to the Have Your Say poll, we'll find out whether Jack agrees with my orders because Jack does not know these results. I've not told him yet. So the question one was, do you like makeover challenges in general? So do you think people voted in yes or no?
If this was post this episode, I feel like they would say yes. So, but I feel like it would be like a 60% yes at most. But yeah, I'd say yes.
So this was 80.5% said yes and
Oh, really?
19.5% said no.
Interesting. Maybe that's just more of a I don't know. Maybe it's just a vocal minority being haters of the makeover.
I was also surprised. I thought it was going to be less of a sort of majority. I thought maybe like you said, I thought it maybe going to be 60-40, 70-30, because I do like makeover challenges, but if someone said, "Is it your favorite challenge? Would you want it every season?" I'm a bit like, eh. I think it's a good show of talent, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. So I probably would have maybe voted no for this question. So I was kind of surprised that there was such a landslide, but maybe this episode was so good that that's why.
Right.
So, question two was who had the best family resemblance? And then the next question we'll talk about in a minute was best outfit. So, this is specifically family resemblance. So, who do you think would have been top voted for family resemblance?
I'd definitely say Lil and Lola. That'd be my guess.
So, Lil got 35.4%, but that wasn't actually number one. Number
Interesting.
one with 36.9%, so only a few points ahead, was Marmalade.
Okay, yeah, I can see those were my top two, I think. So I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and then after that it was Lavoir with 13.3. But Lil and Marmalade got the biggest share by far, but Marmalade got two percentage points more.
Mhm.
I personally would have given it to Lil, I think, because I think they maybe looked a tiny bit more similar because the outfits were so similar as well. But I guess Marmalade, maybe the makeup and everything translated a bit more onto her mother a little bit. Maybe that's why.
I agree. I think that I would have given it to Lil too because I think the tattoos really brought it together. Like to me, that tells a whole story of these two have been, I don't know, friend or either family or sisters, and they've been doing this business for years, and they got tattoos for it. Yeah,
Question three then was who had the best outfits. So do you think that the results are going to be similar, or do you think it's going to be more majority for one than the other?
I think more majority for Marmalade, but I would probably say that Lil is second again, if I were to guess.
So so you're right. So Marmalade is first, but what percentage would you say Marmalade got of the vote?
Hmm. Like around 65%.
54.6.
Okay.
So
Okay.
decent. So Marmalade 54.6, then Lil was 24.1. So Lil got about a quarter of the votes. And then Kyron got 15.4.
Okay. Yeah. I think they're just so unique that I could see people voting for that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, love Kyron. I think this week was just so different that I think it is difficult to compare it, but I can see why maybe Kyron got that much. So yeah, I guess I would agree with that because Marmalades was just so fashion and so interesting to look at, and they both looked impeccable. So
Mhm.
question four was then, do you agree with the winner of the challenge? So again, what do you think? Is it going to be yes or no?
I think yes. I don't think it was. They all did a good job, but I think Marmalade getting that win is very agreeable.
What do you think's the split then between yes and no?
80-20.
So it's actually exactly 70-30,
Oh, okay.
which I don't think we often have splits that are that
Exact.
exact. It's usually like a few
Yeah.
points. But yeah, it's 70-30. So I do think personally I would have given it to Lil, but I can see why Marmalade won. So I can see why. But I guess 30% said no, so that's almost a third. So we'll find out. And then the next question was if you answered no to the previous question, as in you did not agree with the top or the winner, who should have won instead? So ignoring NA, because that's the people who voted yes, the person who got the most votes was, can you guess?
I think it's probably Lil, but I think Lavoie would be a close second. I don't know.
Lil got 20%, 20.3,
Okay.
and then Lavoie got 6.4, so quite
Oh,
a bit
interesting.
less. And then
Hmm.
Kyron got 5.4,
Okay.
and then Relisa got 0.3. So moving on to question six, which is kind of related. So it's, do you agree with the bottom two? What about you? What do you think? Do you think this is going to be a yes or a no majority?
I definitely a yes at like 75%.
So yes got 79%
Okay.
and no got 21%.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So pretty
personally
close.
do think the bottom was probably kind of obvious, I would say, given that. So um then the next question, question seven, which is related, is if you voted no to the previous question, as in you did not agree with the bottom, who should have been in the bottom instead? Who do you think got the most votes?
Kyron, maybe?
Kyron got 10.3%, which is the
Okay.
majority of what was left. Lil then got 7.7 and
Hmm.
Lavoie got 2.1. So, although these are quite small percentages of what's left, it's quite a lot. So, yeah, Kyron, Lil, then Lavoie. And question 8 was who won the lip sync in your opinion? So obviously the lip sync was between Relisa and Chara. Who do you think won and what percentage do you think it was?
Relisa, I want to, I don't know if it would be a close one or I'm going to say 85% Relisa.
80.3 for
Okay.
Relisa and then 19.7 for Chara. So pretty much 80-20 for
hmm
Relisa. Do you agree with that in terms of do you think actually Relisa won?
I think so. I think especially towards the end, she really picked it up, and I love the performance. The boa that she had really helped her out. It made everything even more dynamic. Charity's performance was good. It's there's like a certain face that a lot of the comedy queens from the UK make when they are up against a much stronger like dancer, or they whenever they're trying to do comedy, like "ooh, I'm funny." I feel like we saw that with Charity, and I wish that she tried to duke it out, just taking the song more a little less camp, because I think she would have had just as strong of a chance. It wasn't a bad performance, but sometimes the campness just can't really outdo a really good like dance number, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe from what we saw in the episode, they do the thing all the time where they just show the queen that's going to win a lot in the lip sync. And I think they were focusing on Relisa so much, even when she wasn't necessarily doing that much, they were still focusing on like a zoom in shot of her, whereas they weren't showing Chara as much. So for me, it was kind of obvious who was going to win. I do think Chara did a decent job, but I agree that maybe Relisa encapsulated the song a bit more and seemed a bit more at ease, whereas Chara was maybe a tiny bit more like frantic or kind of comedy, trying to do comedy. And yeah, I don't think it quite worked as much, but still decent performance. And then, so we'll just do the last two questions, which are kind of related to each other. So, question 9 was who do you think will win the season? And question 10 was who do you want to win the season? So they're different. So, first question 9, who do you think the audience voted for? Who do you think will win?
Oh, that's so tough. I mean, it's like a two-horse race with Kyron and Lavoie right now. I think they're both doing so good. I think that this top five is so good in general, but just because of past seasons, like Ginger winning in five, I feel like they want to diversify it a little bit. So I feel like it might go to Kyron. Um,
So, in this particular vote, Kyron got 57.2%,
okay,
which was the
wow.
most. Lavoie got 40.3.
Wow. Oh my
And
gosh.
and then so Lil got 1%. And then the others are so small that they don't even show up as percentages on this graph.
That crazy.
So that's who do you think will win? And I thought this was
Right.
the reason I chose these two questions because I thought it was interesting to see the difference between who do you want and who do you think will. So the next question, the last question, question 10 was who do you want to win? Now, do you think this is going to be split between those two so much, or do you think this is going to be a bit more split between all of them?
I think it'll be a little more split between all of them, but just with how everything's being showcased, I still think that Kyron and Lavoie will be sizably ahead. So I'm gonna guess that Kyron is still at the top. I'm not
No,
sure.
actually,
Really?
Chiron is second with
Okay.
25.6. In first place, it's Lavoie with 31.8. So that's interesting that people want Lavoie to win, but think that Chiron will win from the
hmm
vote, I would say. And then third is Lil, but Lil got 23.6, which is only 2 percentage points below Chiron. So Lil is almost just as popular as Chiron in terms of who they want to win.
That's really interesting. I would be fine with anyone. I like Kyron's personality because it's been a while since we've seen a queen be so I don't want to say cocky, so sure of themselves. Talking about her track record. Oh, win! I was high for this episode. I think it's so funny, and the fact that it's not being portrayed extremely negatively makes me like, I guess root for her and want her to win because I like a queen who knows what they're good at and expects to win.
Yeah, I think they've definitely pushed this narrative now that they at first it was like, yeah, you love Kyron, yay. And now you can tell people they're trying to push this narrative of she's being cocky and negative like in a negative way. And I agree. I don't think that's actually true. I think Kyron seems very sweet and I think she's obviously good at saying what she's good at because she is good at everything. She's not really ever
Mhm.
bad. But I can see why they're pushing the storyline because they always want to do something on Drag Race. You don't want it to be obvious who's going to win. So they need to do something to try and knock someone off their pedestal a little bit. Um,
Right.
but what I thought was interesting is the difference between them thinking that Kyron will win, but they want Lavoie to win. And it was actually a decent, like, I don't know, like 7% difference between the two.
Hmm. It's Lavoie's just, you know, just such a warm presence, very classic drag, and like well, we've seen that a lot on UK where there's so many big names that they're like trickling into the show. Each season we get one and they excel, especially on UK. I feel like we'd never see the same on US where like any of the older queens tend to not do that great. But on UK, like they're properly praised and they're properly built up to be big uh, characters in the drag space. So people wanting her to win just kind of makes sense because I think she's just a good person and a good queen.
In terms of we'll move on to the comments because we want to pick up on a few things that we talked about. So I'll start with my Patreon comments. My Patreon, Linda, hi Linda, said, I'm enjoying this season. This was the best makeover episode in Drag Race history for me. I
Mm,
was really hoping no one had to sashay away, but that's part of the game. The casting on this season gives us a nice variety of talent, personality, and seasoned performers, which I think is I think that's a very excellent description of the season. Um,
mm.
my Patreon Sabato said something kind of similar and said, 2 words, I cried. This was such a heartfelt episode. Lavoie's father is the prime example of the perfect father accepting.
Mhm.
And then Jessica said, my patron Jessica said something similar. This has to be one of my favorite makeover episodes ever. I laughed and cried some more. Such a great cast.
Yeah, I agree with everything that they said. I definitely teared up at points. It was so good.
I was going to say, did you get a little bit teary?
I did. It was just funny that they did that and then they rickrolled us at the end. I'm so glad they finally used that song. But yeah, just very beautiful all around. I get very emotional very easily when it comes to media like this, so it was good. It was a good cry, a good tearing up.
And then in terms of the have your say poll from my audience, these are all anonymous, so I don't know who wrote them. But someone said, as an older queer brackets 40-year-old trans man and someone who lost family by coming out, this episode meant the whole world to me and maybe one of my favorite episodes of all time. I bawled my eyes out at all the love and acceptance from the family members slash loved ones, especially Lavoie's dad. And then they said, thanks for all you do. Love the channel. So thank you so much to whoever wrote this. That's very lovely. And I agree with that sentiment. I think it was so cool that they had, especially an older person who was so cool and accepting about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when they have family on, it starts. You're like it makes you think about your family and like oh, what would they do in this scenario? And I'm very grateful to have very accepting family around me. Like Drag Race was part of the way that I came out to my parents. I was like, oh
Oh,
hey, I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and then I just left it at that. But then like a couple weeks later, I'm like, oh, I'm gay. So yeah, it's just it's very anytime having family on TV, it's just such a good showcase to other people who may be struggling or have family who's on the fence or have accepting people of like what to be grateful for in your life. And yeah, just beautiful.
oh, that's so sweet, and that's so interesting. You said about Drag Race was like the way, well, part of the way you came out. So, I mean, you are obviously like a lot younger than me, but like Drag Race wasn't actually on when I came out. I mean, it makes me sound
Mm,
really old, but I was like 16 or 17, so that would have been 2006, 2007. So that was before Drag
mm.
Race came out. So, but if I had been that age, then yeah, I could totally see it's a way to talk about and open a conversation about something, but not necessarily in such like a difficult way to talk about because you're talking about the TV show, but it's sort of the way in. So I do love that so many people see that as an opportunity. And also the thing that they said, the person said, thanks for all you do, love the channel. I just, I get comments like this sometimes, and it is so lovely. Do you have any experience of that? Because obviously you've also got a channel. Like, what kind of comments do you get a lot?
I got a lot of comments just being like, "Oh, I needed this today." Like my most recent video was on just feel good episodes of Drag Race after the tumultuous couple weeks we've had in the US with political stuff. I was like, let me just give some positivity and some episodes that people can watch. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, I really needed like this pick me up." So I think one of the best compliments to get is like, "Oh, I listen to you when I'm eating. I listen to you when I'm falling asleep." Like I like being that person that can just sit in with someone and just be there. So I think that's the best type of compliment.
Yeah, it's really wild when you actually think about like when you read comments like that and someone's like, "Oh, I listen to you to fall asleep," or which I guess is a compliment. I mean, it could also be that my voice is so boring that it sends people to sleep.
I wouldn't say that, no.
But when you see people, it is so lovely when you get comments or people DMing you saying, I was really, I had a really bad day today, and your video made me smile or something. It really, it kind of, it is crazy to think that that's like real people watching your videos. It's
Right.
so yeah, lovely though. I appreciate it very much. Um, so one pick to pick up on something you mentioned earlier, there were quite a lot of people who talked about the like kind of double Shantae type thing. So someone said I would be totally okay with them doing a double crowning for Lavoie and Kyron this season, unless something crazy happens next episode. They've both been killing it and really deserve it. And then on a similar note, someone said the vibe of the whole episode really felt like it was going to be a no elimination slash lip sync for the win. So when they went ahead with the bottom two, it felt really at odds with the rest of the episode.
Mhm. I think to the first point, I definitely think that a double crowning could happen. It's almost a similar vein to Cheddar and Danny on series four, where they're both just strong powerhouses, and I feel like a lot of people were like okay with a double crowning there. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know if they're still terrified of All Stars 4 and that double crowning. And yeah, I've been very spoiler free on this season. So yeah, I'd be fine with the double crowning. That's very two very specific styles of drag, so it'd be cool to see both of them like that. But at the same time, they're also very good All Stars candidates. So
Yeah, personally, I think double shantays can work. I don't think in this particular episode because of how many queens there are left. I think it would have been too many. So I do think they need to get people out. And unfortunately, although I love Chara, I was very sad to see her go. I do think that it was a fair result this week.
mhm,
In terms of a double crowning, I can see it happening because I do think it's very difficult to choose between the two. But I do think it does lose a little bit of the shine when they keep if they do it too often. So I think they'd have to be careful about doing it.
mhm,
Um, yeah, it's very. I think it's very difficult. I'm not sure it's actually going to happen this season, but I think it could. It's the only season so far where I feel like it really would. So yeah, it's slightly, could be a little bit controversial if they do, but we'll see. So thank you so much. That's all of the comments and everything. I was wondering if you could give me your prediction then for who you think is going to be the next eliminated queen, and then who you think is actually going to win ultimately. If you had to just pick one, you can't. Double crowning is not an option.
okay. Next eliminated, I honestly, I feel like it might be between Marmalade and Lil. Um, but I feel like I don't know. I'm wondering how Relisa will do in the roast, because to me it's almost giving like Relisa will be in the bottom with one of those two and send them home and make it to top four. Because I don't know. That's just maybe what I'm thinking. But Relisa's been very funny on the show, and I would want her to do good. But the other two have had like such strong moments, and like Marmalade has built up such momentum. So seeing her make it to the end would be great, but it could also be like the like a Miss Cracker situation where she like wins after building up such momentum, and then the next week she gets sent home, and it's like, oh, that sucks. Um, so, but I don't know. Relisa just has like such a presence around her that I don't see her going home next week. So I think it has to be between Lil and Marmalade.
Okay, yeah. I personally thought it could be Releaser, but you're right in that you do have to think about what the next challenge is, and it's a roast. Although Marmalade is very funny,
Mhm.
it's to know whether that's going to translate to a roast is another thing though. But she is very funny and like she can obviously land a joke. Lil is funny naturally. I'm not sure how she is at delivering jokes, so she's the person I think it might be Relisa and Lil, maybe. But I can see her being a bit like the Taste of being like the dancing diva, like big personality who makes it to the top, even if she's been arguably in the bottom quite a few times. I can see that also happening
Right. I definitely can see that. How many times has she lip synced up to this point? Twice or
twice, I think.
okay. Yeah, I can see that happening. I really want her to do good in the roast because I just really like Relisa. As for Marmalade, I could see her doing good, very much like Sasha Velour doing a roast where it's like the jokes may be a little long, but they're really funny. Something like that. Um,
Yes.
I'm excited. It's gonna be a I like when it gets down to this where there's no like weak link, so it's gonna be a toss up of who's getting eliminated.
And who do you think's going to win? One name only.
Oh yes. Gosh, that's so hard. I want to say Kyron. Yeah, I just think there's not a queen in the winner circle that has a drag style like her. And that's not a knock to Lavoie at all. Kyron's just so out there that I think it would be a really cool winner's pick. But again, would be happy with either of those two or anyone.
Yeah, I would be happy with either. I do think it's going to be Kyron personally, just because of the storyline that they've shown of her on the show. But I would also be happy with either of them. But I do think it's probably going to be Kyron.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on, Jack. It was so lovely hearing your opinions. Can you perhaps, for any crazy people that don't already follow you, can you maybe tell us about like what content you do, where people can find you, and things like that?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at JackFed. I also do drag race stuff, pretty similar to what Matt does, but more so less about the tea and the drama, and more just talking about the show or talking about the challenges and the structure. I love the production side of things, especially. Yes, I do a lot of stuff like that. So JackFed on YouTube, JackFed YT on Twitter, and then Jack.Fed on Instagram. Those are like the main three. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having you on. You're also one of like the kind of more like OG YouTubers for Drag Race. Like in one of the first you because I remember when I first started, you were one of the biggest and like you were one of the people I first started watching. So I definitely remember watching your videos for quite a long time. So it was really cool to actually get you to come on.
Yeah, that's crazy that like I'm OG or considered OG now.
Because
But
there's so
honestly,
many now. But yeah,
yeah.
I guess you kind of are.
Honestly, at this point, yeah, it's almost been 3 years now that I've been doing it. So that's crazy. But yeah, wow. OG, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for being on. And I was wondering if you could see us out by summarizing this episode in one word.
I don't want it to be a cop out, but I'm just gonna say family.
That is accurate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jack. Bye.
Goodbye.